The Pulse School on realagriculture.com is brought to you by Saskatchewan Pulse Growers and Nodulator XL.
By Alison Friesen of BASF to talk about disease control in pulse crops, both peas and lentils. And Alison, that really starts from when you choose what seed treatment to put on your seed.
Looking at across all the different pulse crops, of course we always recommend that you use the highest quality seed that you can find. We had a really good year last year in concerns to seed quality. However, it's also what's in your field that's really important to take care of as well. So we've seen over the last years being a bit wetter that you see a lot more seedling diseases throughout the field. So it's really important not only to protect your seed through getting certified seed, but also to protect it from your soil profile as well. So there's some great options on the market for seed treatments in pulses. We actually have a brand new seed treatment coming out next year that's going to be Ensure Pulse, which will cover across the entire pulse market as well as in flax. And we didn't have very high pressure at the site this year. However, we did bring out some demonstration material for growers to see in higher pressure situations what effect they can have on their actual fields, and see how that can affect you throughout the entire season. So I have a couple of plants here that were planted a couple of weeks ago. So these are field peas that have been infected with different Fusarium species. So on my right hand side you can see in untreated the crop did come up. However, there is infection on these seedlings and they're at various staging, and that's just because they're struggling to fight against that pathogen in the soil. So when you have untreated seed, even if you have a certified seed lot, that infected soil can really affect how your plants come out of the ground as well as how they progress through the season. Where if you apply something like an Ensure Pulse seed treatment, you can see how much more even that plant stand is and how far ahead compared to the untreated check that these plants actually are. They didn't have to fight off that disease pressure early on. They were able to grow through it, and they're actually a full node ahead of the untreated as well. So the benefits of something like Ensure Pulse are not only for their seed treatment activity on diseases, but they also have excellence benefits, which include plant health as well as cold tolerance. So we had a bit of cooler conditions right around seeding this year with some frost early on, and this can also really help in those situations and help to keep those plants to be actively growing through those situations.
Shifting then from the seed treatment side to in-crop fungicide application, maybe take us through the process of timing and deciding when to apply fungicide on pulses.
Definitely. So with pulses, if you do have a year, we have nice quality seed as well as low disease pressure early on in the season. It's also important to keep an eye out on that crop canopy for disease development. A lot of the diseases in pulses do start from the bottom up. Diseases like anthracnose in lentils or Microsphaerella in peas usually tend to start either from infected seed or at the bottom of the canopy where there tends to be a bit more moisture, and slowly move up the plant. So with all fungicides, we always recommend a preventative application. Nothing on the market is eradicative. So to make sure you get in there prior to disease onset is the most important part. And for something like a Priaxor, we definitely recommend first flower to get control of those early season diseases like Microsphaerella, Ascochyta, and Anthracnose, as well as early suppression if you have any molds, if you have a really dense canopy. So we're pretty early in the season, so not much to see in the plots, but I did bring a couple of plants with me. So in field peas, we can see this has actually been infected with Microsphaerella blight, and when we look at the untreated, you can see how infected the lower part of the canopy actually is. So not only does this affect how your nutrients and water is translocated through the plant, this also affects how your plant stands. So when you have high pressure of disease, we tend to see the crops fall over pretty early in the season, which can make harvestability quite difficult. But when you use a product like Priaxor, you can see here in the lower canopy how much greener and healthier those stems are. There is some infection higher up on the plant, but usually from contact with other plants. But just having those greener stems can really help to keep that plant up and healthy for a lot longer, which means you get longer pod fill as well, and healthier plant stands, which makes harvestability quite easy as well. So for these were always sprayed for control of this pathogen. So this is Microsphaerella, can move quite easily through the plant, but has great control of this product with Preaxer. So it's a key timing to get it before the disease sets in, and that's usually around first flower when that canopy starts to close.
Okay. How about with the dry conditions this year? What do you say to growers thinking maybe they don't need a fungicide, or how can they justify it?
So yeah, for the drier conditions we've been having, we've seen a bit slower growth and a bit slower canopy for a lot of these. However, the pulse crops are still looking very good for the most part compared to some of the other crops out there. We're also seeing very high prices, so it's a very important crop to protect. So making sure you're scouting these fields regularly and being aware that how quickly disease can progress when moisture does come. High humidity also affects disease pressure as well. It's not necessarily always the big rains that will cause disease, but if you do have some seed that had some infection, or even if you've had tight rotations where this crop's been grown continuously on the same field, there's a lot of inoculum in those fields that can attack that plant, and with the drier conditions, plants can be more susceptible because they're fighting off more conditions than just actually disease, because they're not as healthy and they're not getting as much nutrients. So applications of fungicide can really help to prevent later disease onset as well, but also with Preaxer you also get the benefits of excellence as well, which can help your plant to better utilize the plant biomass that it has there, so increased root structure as well as bigger leaves and greener leaves longer, which can also help with pod filling.